All right. All right, we are back. We're going to continue this good faith debate on should Christians send their kids to public school. Jen Wilkin says yes, unless you challenge her, and then she says maybe. He says no, unless you challenge him, and then he says maybe. Who knows? It's a tough call. And that's basically what we've got here. So we're going to continue this. We got to finish it. I have to finish these debates. It's just I can't just let it hang there. A lot of people have been asking me also if I'm going to be doing the climate change debate. Gospel Coalition, climate change, good faith debate, featuring this guy. I can't tell you how many times I've heard somebody say that they thought this guy was a crossdresser. And I got to be honest, when I first saw his picture, I also thought he was a crossdresser. In any case, this is the guy who takes the position that climate change is a gospel issue, and we must consider climate change regulations if we're truly gospel-centered Christians. And he has a gay lisp, and he's wearing flip-flops at the debate. It could not be more on the nose. I just wish he wore this blouse during the debate, but he instead wears a button down, which I guess could be a blouse too. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert on women's clothing, but in any case, here we go. We're going to continue. So yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do I feel like I have to. I have to do the climate change debate with this guy that's in it. So yeah, I'm going to do it. We're going to do it. In any case, let's continue with the good faith debate. If you remember where we left off, this guy just got done pretending that he really values diversity, but he could not say how he proved that he valued diversity in the education of his children. He just kind of hemmed and hawed and said, well, I guess public schools are better at that. And I truly value it, even though obviously his actions have determined that was a lie more than 10 times.
So one thing that we've talked about, and one thing that we've talked about is
one thing I'll say too is again, if you really want your kids to have black friends, I've never considered the race of my kids' friends. I've never thought to myself, it would be great if my children had more Chinese friends or Indian friends, or who are we kidding? We're only talking about black people here. I mean, do they have enough black friends? I've never once in my life ever thought that. Listen, I in some ways I get a pass because I'm Puerto Rican, but I've never ever even considered it. It's like, little Timmy, he's playing with too many white people. Like, maybe we should start finding some black friends. Like, it's just such a stupid thing in the first place anyway. But they know they have to say they value it. They don't know why they value it. They know they have to value it, which is why they say it.
Is that there are polarities on either side of y'all who are more dogmatic about the decisions that they've made, and you obviously extend a lot of charity to each other and other families because of reasons that you've stated. What dangers do you see in the hearts of the extremes? And I'll ask each of you to address the heart on the extreme of your particular side. So I've been starting with Jen. I'll start with you, Jonathan, this time.
Yeah, I mean, that's
So this is something that I think is very interesting what he did there. He tried to contrast, and in fact, as far as the way he presented it, this is an antonym. You can either be, truly principled and dogmatic about your position, or you can be charitable. You can't be both. You can't really think that public school is actually a enemy indoctrination camp, and so you should not send your children there. You can't hold that position and be charitable at the same time. That, my friends, is a lie. That, my friends, is one of the fundamental lies of Gospel Coalition, where you really can't have a convictional, you can't be too extreme and be in the truth, be loving and charitable at the same time. Because the reality is there are so many dogmatic positions in the Scripture that are clear, that are obvious, that are held by Paul, that they're taught by Paul, they're taught by Jesus. It's dogmatic. You're either hot or cold. And it's not confusing. And you can still be charitable while holding that position dogmatically. You could still be charitable while having zeal for the truth. You can still, but Gospel Coalition wants to present to you that if you hold a position too tightly, if you're too zealous for the truth of the Lord, then you are automatically being uncharitable, and that's a bad boy. And that's why we get people like this. That's why we get people like this as representative of Christianity. This is not representative of Christianity. He should be rebuked. He should be disciplined for the way he presents himself to the world. It's just that simple. But because being zealous and holding positions dogmatically is automatically unloving, uncharitable, this is what you get. You get a bunch of people crossing their legs. You get the female position, typically always the liberal position, which I find interesting, of course. And then, of course, you get the female adjacent pastors that represent the other side, where they're still gonna argue emotively. They're still going to, kind of hem and haw, and there's not gonna be a sharp edge to anything they're saying. This is the faithful biblical position. It's females representing the liberal side, and then female adjacent men representing the conservative side. That's what they think winsomeness is. That's what they think good faith is. Good faith is arguing softly. Good faith is arguing emotively. That's what they think it is. And so that's the one of the fundamental premises of Gospel Coalition.
Really important, and that was one of the reasons why I was hesitant to have this conversation, not because it wouldn't go well with Jen. I've been in her home many times and know her kids, and they're wonderful. And
it has been fun to see how well you know each other.
Yeah, it's been great. And
it's been so fun. That's one thing that I've definitely. Gospel Coalition could not be gayer unless it was like, gay porn. Like, honestly, it is the gayest presentation of what Christianity can be that you could possibly imagine. Like, this guy's like, oh, it was so fun to see how well you know each other. It's like, what? That's exactly what I thought. It was hilarious. It was fun. This is just a fun conversation. Man. And then he says, I hesitated to even have this conversation. Why? Because I'm scared of people being dogmatic. What is your problem? I had pause. I didn't even want to have this conversation. Like, we're not allowed to have conversations. We're not allowed to have arguments, like real debates, real disagreements. I've got real disagreements with Baptist brothers out there. I go to a Baptist church, so I guess I'm a Baptist, but I have Presbyterian convictions. Somebody corrected me on that once. I don't know who it was. It was a Presbyterian brother that was saying this. Who was it? Oh, man. Anyway, doesn't matter. He was basically like, nah, you're Baptist, bro. You go to a Baptist church. Your convictions can be whatever you want, but you're a Baptist. Which I do understand. I get that. But I have some serious disagreement. So should I hesitate to have any arguments with them lest we be too dogmatic? And furthermore, when did being dogmatic become this negative thing? It's not. There are so many truths that we ought to hold dogmatically. What does that mean as far as charity? Or why should we hesitate to hold them or to talk about them? Maybe it's not it's not that you hesitate to hold them. It's that you hesitate to talk about them because people are going to think you're a jerk or something. It's just, I don't get this mentality. It's so gay. It's so gay.
Many great public school teachers and counselors and others in our church as well. I'm their pastor, and I care for them, and there's no demonization going on.
But you don't care for them if you don't tell them what's what. If you hesitate to tell the truth because lest you be dogmatic, then you don't care for them enough. Nobody's saying you have to rip public school teachers, but if you've got Christian public school teachers in your church that are teaching anti-Christ worldviews in their classes because the government told me to, then you should rip them. You should disparage them or whatever it is. That should be something you discuss. Look, if they tell you that you must teach preferred pronouns, and that's the public good, that's the moral good, and you're a Christian, you're a public school teacher, you should be willing to be fired over that. No, I'm not going to teach he's to become she's or she's to become theys or they thems or dragonkin or all that stuff. You need to be prepared to lose your job over that. I'm not going to teach your anti-Christ worldview. I refuse. So it's like nobody's saying disparage the teachers, but if you care for those teachers, you need to work with them in real life. In real life, this is what you need to be prepared to do. You're a Christian, you teach God's truth. So if they tell you in your curriculum that you must teach that God did not create the world, God did not speak and it was done. You have to teach something else. Sorry, you can't teach that class because you're teaching a lie. God told you the way the universe works, and you're teaching a lie. And so you need to be prepared to put your foot down and say, you're going to have to go ahead and fire me. I'm a Christian, and I got to tell you, I'm not going to promise I'm not going to sue you for firing me. You might win the lawsuit, you might lose the lawsuit. But the thing is, you can't do that. You don't get an excuse to sin because you're a public school teacher, obviously. So nobody's saying disparage teachers for teaching 2 + 2 = 4, because you know what? God made it so that 2 + 2 = 4. Nobody's telling you to disparage public school teachers because they're teaching about, the characteristics and physical traits of minke whales. Because you know what? God created minke whales, and he put a lot of mysteries in the anatomy of minke whales that we're supposed to figure out. I don't know why I thought of minke whales, but that's just, I remember it's one of the biggest units I remember in public school was a unit about whales. And there's like, I feel like we were learning about whales for like 6 months. Anyway, or owl pellets or something. Like if you're dissecting an owl pellet and teaching your kids how to use the tools and stuff like that and how to do the scientific method on the owl pellets, nobody's saying disparage teachers for that. But the moment you cross the line and you say, you know what? We're going to teach you how to have safe anal sex. You two guys, we're going to teach you that. And it's morally good, and it should be celebrated, and you should not be discriminated against. And it's like the minute you start having to teach that stuff, your pastor, if he loves you, is going to say, look, I know this is going to be a challenge, but nobody said you didn't have to count the costs. If you're going to follow Christ, you're going to follow him all the way. And let's think through, let's work through where the lines are in your school. Yeah, you can teach 2 + 2 = 4, no problem. You can teach science, no problem. You can teach health, no problem. But the minute they tell you to teach something that's not correct according to what God has said, the minute that they insist that you have to say, yeah, she's can turn into he's. That's definitely true. The minute they start doing that, you have to be prepared to be disciplined over that. You have to be prepared to be fired for that. You have to be, because God said to count the cost. Christ said to count the cost. You're either in or you're out, and you need to count that cost. That doesn't mean that people are going to be perfect, but you need to have those conversations. And guess what? People like Jen might say that's disparaging public educators because, she can't think straight. She thinks with her emotions. But you need to understand the difference between disparaging and disciplining. Disparaging and disciplining. Inappropriate dogmatism and appropriate dogmatism. You need to be able to do that. And so they make it seem like if you're against public schools, then you're against public school teachers and you think they're all evil. That's not true. That's not true.
Church at all, but you're right, that is the case in broader Christian culture. But we were very involved in the homeschool movement, especially back in the 90s and early 2000s. And so I'm not involved anymore, but one of the things you definitely see in a lot of that world is a very pull up the drawbridge, us versus them, throw some holy hand grenades over it's a Monty Python reference, throw some holy hand grenades over the walls, in a very hold up,
this is so
us
winsome.
Versus them kind of culture. And that is not healthy. It's not healthy on any side of any spectrum. One of my life principles is that the degree to which our life energy is motivated by things we're opposed to is the degree to which we're unhealthy. And that applies.
So the us versus them mentality motif is unhealthy. It's unhealthy no matter what you're talking about. The us versus them, the in or you're out, the black or the white, the lukewarm or the hot. Is that what he's really trying to say? The goats or the sheep? Like is that these kinds of things, Jonathan? I challenge that. The us versus them is always unhealthy. The more you're defined by what you're against is the more you're unhealthy. It's like, look, I can't help it if somebody defines me by what I'm against. Look, I'll tell you all day what I'm for, and I'll tell you what I'm against. And guess what the pagans do? oh, you're just against teachers. You're just against trans youth. They're going to always define me by what I'm against because that's part of their shtick. Guess what, Jonathan? Who cares what they define you as? You have to, listen, here's the reality. If you read the scriptures, you will find, let's just go with Paul first, just for a moment. You will find lists of things that Paul is for, and he'll go into these poetic, explanations of the glories of Christ and all of this stuff, and that's wonderful. But unless you are illiterate, you will also see a bunch of things that Paul is against. He gives you both. There is a time for both, and both is necessary. So all of these mealy-mouthed gospel coalition people that say, oh, we should only be talking about what we're for, that is not biblical. That is not how Paul taught. That is not how Christ taught. That is not how the Bible teaches. It gives us both. We need both. We need to show what we're for, what we're going to do, and also what we're against and what you should not do. That is part and parcel of what our jobs are. We need to be teaching our children that as well. And so all of this stuff is just like, let's just not fight about it. Oh, here's the Monty Python reference for you. We can all just chuckle and yuck it up because we're all friends here. Look, you can be friends and have a serious disagreement and say, look, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't send your kids to public school. You see, even the title here is a lie. Should Christians send their kids to public school? That's not the question that's being kicked around here. What the question that's really being kicked around here is, which position is maybe, potentially, maybe, perhaps, but not too dogmatically, not God's best for you. That's the real question. You're not going to get a should here. No, Jen, of course, will say should. Of course, she'll retreat from it, of course, if you challenge her. But she'll say, no, it's the Christian ideal. But the reality is that when you say, oh, well, we shouldn't be against anything, like you just shouldn't be against, then I'm sorry, again, you are not loving. If you're not against certain things, you don't know how to love. At best, you have a halfway love, and I would argue you have no love at all if nobody knows the kinds of things that you're against. If nobody knows that you're against childhood genital mutilation, then I'm sorry, you lack love. Nobody knows you're against pedophiles and grooming. I'm sorry, but you lack love. It's just that simple, guys. It really is that simple. People ought to know what you're for and what you're against. And you can't help if they focus on the things you're against because that's their little strategy. Don't change your approach based on what the pagans do with your approach. You just do you. You do you. As a Christian, of course.
Is on the left and the right. And so I'm afraid that a lot of fear-mongering happens and also a lot of fear-driven motives are behind a lot of people homeschooling and doing private school. I'm afraid of they're going to come get our kids or something, and no good decisions come out of fear. No good decisions. So you see, I think you do see a us versus them mindset, and it's probably a...
Okay, I got to look up a passage. No good decisions are come out of fear. Is that the idea here, Jonathan? Like if you're worried about something or fearful of something, you can't make a good decision. Here's what the scripture says. This is Proverbs 22. This is just one of, 10 verses that say basically the same thing. It says this, a prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. The prudent man foresees the evil. He sees danger ahead. He sees trouble. And because he fears that trouble, he has a healthy respect for what that could do to him. There could be bad things that happen. I see it. It's there. It's danger. It's up ahead. I see it. Because I fear it, I hide myself. The Bible describes that person as a prudent man. This is a wise thing to do. It's wisdom to see danger ahead and to hide yourself. Don't keep walking towards it like an idiot. Just instead, hide yourself, wait for it to pass, and then go on your merry way. The Bible describes that fear-based decision as prudent, as wisdom. This is what a smart person does. And then it describes the simple. The idiots, the naive, the people that basically take the approach of Jen Wilkin here. And what does the Bible say about them? They see the same evil. They see the same danger up ahead as the prudent man. The prudent man, driven by fear, hides himself from the evil ahead, from the danger ahead. There's no reason to pass along. We don't have to go that way. Let's just hide out over here for a moment. Doesn't mean you hide forever, but the prudent man hides a fear-based decision. Jen Wilkin over here, the simple, they keep going. They see the same thing. And what does the scripture say? Because they saw the danger, they saw the evil, and they kept going anyway, they're punished. They're punished because they weren't afraid. They saw the danger. They didn't care. Maybe they were afraid, but they were too stupid to figure it out, what to do. They kept going, and the Bible says they are punished for it. The prudent man sees danger, is fearful of it, hides himself, does the smart thing. The simple keep going and are punished. Obviously, this does not mean every fear-based decision is the right decision, but he said no fear-based decision is the wise decision, is the right decision. It doesn't lead to good decisions, is what he said. It's just simply not true. There are things that you should fear in an appropriate way. This is obvious. This is obvious. There are certain things that you should not fear. Let me give you an example. You should not fear, if you're a teacher in a public school and you refuse to teach the gender pronouns hospitality lie from Satan, you should not fear what's going to happen to you. What can man do to you? You're obeying God. Christ has vouchsafed your journey. It doesn't mean you do stupid things. It doesn't mean you do foolish things. It doesn't mean you sin because, God's got your back or anything, but he's vouchsafed your journey. What you should fear is disobeying God. What you should fear is putting your children in a compromising position or not necessarily doing right by them 100%. When Deuteronomy tells you to teach them certain things and you say, yeah, you know what, public school's not so bad. Like that's actually what you shouldn't do. You got to challenge this stuff. These are like big Eva like proverbs that are they're satanic, and I mean that in like the technical sense. Like they're upside down from what the scripture teaches. Look, a prudent person sees the trouble ahead, fears what could happen, and does the smart thing. It's okay to be driven by fear sometimes, only when it's appropriate, and you need to know the difference. It's just that simple. It's not complicated. We don't have to pretend like we have to be idiots. We have to be naive in order to be Christians. Oh, you didn't send your kid to public school because you were afraid they were going to teach him pronoun hospitality? What are you, driven by fear? You got to trust God. You got to trust the Lord. It's like, no, that's stupid what you've just said. That's stupid. But the simple don't get these kinds of things. They don't.
Your reaction to
they
the
just yuck it up
overuse of-
about Monty Python and say, yeah, we're all friends here. Everybody's right. Everybody's right. We can't tell the two dogmatically.
and this
What are we?
misuse
What
of
are we?
assault
Dogmatists?
idea. And so a lot of times homeschool people will say, I'm not putting my kids in salt and light. And I agree with you. I think that's not the best way to think about it. And so we're going to hole up and protect our kids. And so I think that's the difficulty. And again, this is where the paideia idea really applies to whether you have your kids in public school or private school. There are plenty of Christian schools that don't do paideia either. Like they're not really shaping, they're seeking to protect and defend and create an us versus them. And I would say that I would be critical of that approach as well. And so anything that disengages us with culture, that doesn't value the common good and doesn't seek to create people of virtue, whether it's in a Christian school or not, is not good.
That's good.
I would say that probably the potholes on my side fall in two categories. One is I'm just going to send them and they'll be fine. Like not staying involved in what's actually happening in that education space, not finding ways to actually be physically present in it in appropriate ways for parents to be involved. When they were in elementary school, I was going to be the room mom if I could, or at least be one of those moms so that I could get eyes on who these other kids were that they were interacting with. I think just trusting that.
It's very weird for a Christian ideal to require you to know you like what she's saying here is she knows it's a negative influence. She knows it's not good. So she needs to mitigate that. And so you can't just send them there and be like, well, it's going to be fine. Look, you like it's amazing to me that you don't just jump on this if you're on the other side of this debate. Why would you need to be the homeroom mom or whatever? I don't even know what that is. But like, why would you need to be that if public school is such a wonderful, fantastic, God-honoring education? The reason why you need to be that is because you know it's not. You know it's not a God-honoring education. And so the very idea that you would have to mitigate for what they're being taught 8 hours a day shows everyone that you know it's not good. It's not the Christian ideal. In fact, it's the Christian last resort is what it is. It's a last freaking resort that if you have to do it, then you have to mitigate it as best as possible. You're dealt a bad hand, and again, I don't think there's very many people that have been dealt this hand, but if you are, I can imagine there's certain people that are dealt a bad hand. They have no choice but to send their kids to public school. They've tried everything, but they can't do it. Fine. Now you have to play catch up. You have to mitigate it. You have to trust God that he will help you in this. But that's not what she's presenting. She's presenting public school as the Christian ideal that for some reason requires all this mitigation of the negative influence that the Christian ideal is. See, if this was a debate, you could challenge her on that. Since it's not, since it's two girls just getting together at girl talk time, you're never going to get that. You're just never going to get that. So she's giving you all these strategies for mitigating the awful influence that a public school is. She admits it here. She's lost the debate, but the reality is that this isn't really a debate anyway. This is just girl talk.
Peer group is probably not going to be an issue because the church youth group is going to make up for whatever. So I think if you're thinking, well, I'm going to outsource their education and their Christian formation, that's a recipe for disaster. But I think the other...
You've already outsourced their Christian formation. This is a fallacy because part and parcel of their Christian formation is their education, is how they're educated. 2 + 2 = 4, but 2 + 2 = 4 specifically because God is there and he's created the world. And he's told us what's what, and he's told us how it works, and he's revealed himself in such a way that we can know about the universe that he's created and all of this kind of stuff. 2 + 2 = 4, but the reason that's important, the reason that has meaning and value is because God is there. This is not random, craziness. It's just not that way. God is there, and he's created this order. That's important. You know what I mean? Like you can learn about science, and the reason why we can know about science and do these methods and things like that, and make predictions and stuff, is because God has created a universe that is ordered in that way. It's not random. This stuff makes a difference. It acts as if education and Christian formation are separate. These are intertwined. They're intimately connected. If you go to my children's homeschool class, they've got all their subjects. It's the classical conversations thing. They've got all their subjects on the board. And what's right in the center, the big center of everything that they see every single time they go to their homeschool group? God. God. All of these subjects, they don't have meaning without understanding that God is there and he's not silent. And everything is a way to know more about God and what he's created. That is part and parcel of a Christian education. That is Christian formation. That's something that I missed as a kid. I did miss it. I did, and I suffered because of it. It's just naivete, man. It's just naivete. It's
side
ridiculous.
too that is also equally.
You gotta challenge that. You gotta challenge that when she puts on her Sith robes and tries to do a Jedi mind trick on you. It's like you gotta challenge that. No. Why would you divorce these two? Education and Christian formation. These are not separate things. That's the point. That's the whole point.
Difficult is the parent who's like, nope, we're on mission here, and I'm going to ask a child who is socially immature to go in with guns blazing and proselytize other students, or I'm going to secretly try to get this public school to be a Christian school that's just, acting like it's a public school. Like I'll hear a lot from parents who will say, well, it's a public school, but all the teachers are Christians. And I'm like, well, I want my children to be exposed to all different kinds of teachers, and then I can parent them through whatever those are. So I don't want to covertly take over the public schools and make them Christian schools. Although I value, the ethics that would involve being in place in the public schools. But I think that because they're public schools, they need to serve a general population in a way that a Christian school doesn't. And so that was always actually a big talking point.
The mood here is just, this is so evil. I don't feel like joking around anymore. Like, this is so, let's let her finish. This is
Point
evil.
with the kids was like, what is appropriate as someone who is in basically a pluralistic environment? How is it appropriate to weigh into conversations? When you do express your opinion, how do you do so that's respectful to the opinions of others? And I think that sometimes Christian parents can go into those settings and sort of have a blunt force trauma event happen when they decide to express where they're coming from. So yeah, that's how it plays out.
If I might jump.
This is so evil. I was talking to my brother about this, and I told him about one of her most recent, questions about, responding to Deuteronomy, and she doesn't say anything about Deuteronomy. She just kind of bloviates about nonsense, and and we were joking and laughing about that. But my brother, he just kind of he just paused for a second. He goes, this is it's funny, but this is evil. This is evil. To Jen Wilkin, since we live in a pluralistic, culture, the influence of a Christian is not a good thing to her. It's not a good thing. This would actually not serve the public good. She said if you had a public school with all Christian teachers and they were all teaching as Christians, that would not serve the public good, according to Jen Wilkin. She wouldn't like that. That wouldn't be a good thing. In fact, that's what an example. He's asked her to give an example of what wouldn't be a good thing, a good reason to send your kids to public school. So let's just say you have a scenario where you've got a public school and all the teachers are Christian, the school board is Christian, they've got a Christian curriculum, and they're teaching and look, as for me in my town, in my school district, this is what you're basically saying. As for me in my school district, we will honor Christ. To Jen Wilkin, that would be bad. That would be not good for the public good. That would be That would be a negative influence. Christians are a negative influence on the public good in that scenario. Because after all, what is the little Hindu that comes down the street? He wants to have an education that is acceptable to a Hindu and a Muslim and all that. Having a Christian education as a Hindu, that would hurt him as a Hindu. Jen Wilkin has been failed by so many people. Her pastors have failed her. Her husband totally failed her. It's my mood has completely changed. It's just it's hard to even. Anyway, it sounded like he wanted to jump in here, and if he agrees with her about that, about how it would be bad for a Christian public school to exist, because we're pluralists, and we're principled pluralists, so we're never going to be a Christian nation. So it'll always be bad for a Christian. That would actually be Antichrist. It would always be bad for a Christian school to exist because we're principled pluralists. If he agrees with her, I may just drop it there. I don't know, man. I don't know if I can handle it.
Jump in there.
Please
and
do.
just say so. Yeah, I mean, I agree that it has to start in the home, and knowing you and being in your home, I know you guys have done this well. No crying in math and all that.
Yeah.
So, and it is what is challenging, I think, is that Christian parents who put their kids in Christian schools could, as you just said, actually neglect making the home the center as well. And so that's the irony of it. You can, again, outsource it all to church. I just want to affirm what you're saying, that's the challenge, I think, is that we have to start recognizing that we are responsible. I think part of the trick that I'd like to hear from you about is, what about the single mother or the parents that have to work a ton of jobs or for mental health reasons, 1,000 reasons, they aren't able to give that kind of energy to the home and focus with central spaces. There are a million reasons why it may not happen. In that scenario, how, doesn't it seem that maybe Christian school would be a far better option? Because if you can't do the other very well, at least getting some help on the formative side. I'm just curious how you think about that.
I don't care how she thinks about it. So anyway, we're done for the day. We are done for the day. I'm gonna go. What's something uplifting that I could listen to? I need to listen to something uplifting, like maybe like just some calm music, or I don't know, man. There's got to be something out there that you guys listen to be uplifted. That's what I need right now, because I gotta say that, like, and this was yesterday. I was talking to my brother, or the day before rather, and you know, we were just chuckling about, you know, how stupid her answer was about something. We're just laughing, and he just stops and he goes, you know, it's funny, but like, it's not. It's really evil what she's doing, and she's tricking so many people with this, and I agree, it is evil. Gospel Coalition is just, they're a real piece of work, man. I cannot wait for the day until it's just an ash heap, metaphorically speaking, of course. So don't get all crazy on me. I can't wait till Gospel Coalition is an ash heap, and it's just a footnote in a history book about like a sad time in our church when we had, you know, mealy-mouthed, female-adjacent guys debating women, liberal women, on if it was okay to be conservative Christians with dogmatically held beliefs. And the woman says it's not, because she's a liberal, and the men are like, oh, well, I don't know. I mean, I worry about that too. I'm fearful. It's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. I'm going to go consume some uplifting material. God bless. That was an orb. You see that orb? Sort of disturbing. There's another orb. What are these things? No, not comfortable. Not comfortable at all.